don't get a much more perfect place than this. Here we are in Canada, near Montreal. We come out to fish some lakes for big pike, but before that, this is actually at the very end of my trip, the second to last day. I want to do one last large pastel of this lake and river scene. Then afterwards we're going for the big pike. It's been a wonderful trip, and I think having now got all the information for the video, when I put this together you'll thoroughly enjoy the whole film, where I'm going to demonstrate some pastel, some watercolour, some mixed media, which show you a lot about what this northern area, this northern part of Canada is like. This time of the year, absolutely superb. Not too many mosquitoes, but it's been a wonderful stay and a wonderful holiday, and I hope you enjoy seeing the whole experience with me. The particles between the pastel particles will allow, you see we've used our complete armoury of techniques. We've used warm next to cool, we've used light next to dark, we've used rough next to smooth. So we've used these textures and perspective and all of the things that we can use to fool the eye into thinking this is a real scene. But it goes beyond that. It's not just a photograph. We've enjoyed the day, we've enjoyed the mediums, and we've enjoyed using pastel in this way to give a very lively feeling to a painting, to give a feeling to the water, to give a feeling to the grass. And talking of the fishing, here we go now. The first lake, a big lake that I fished on for pike, and what a beautiful place. If ever I had a dream of what a Canadian lake would be, here it was. Sunken pine trees, beaver dams, lots of animals, very wild, beautiful reflections from the pine trees, and clean, clear water. The fish we did catch were beautiful to eat. There was no mud or silt or dirt or pollution. They just tasted wonderful. I have a pike, my first of the Canadian pike, on a plug. Ah, yes, good pike. So, I've got a lot of room, but... Oh,
A big one?
yeah, nice fish. To prepare for the fish, because there's not much room with the camera and the fish and me. Come to Uncle Peter. Pas fini?
Wow. Oh, not too bad.
This strange looking device is what the pike was caught on. In fact, it's a wooden lure with a couple of large treble hooks and a little vane at the front to make it wobble, and the pike thinks it's a baby pike and comes and grabs it. So they've no sympathy for each other at all, they just eat. This pretty little fish is called a sun bass, and the next butterfly is a swallowtail. We see these in England and the UK as well, and in France. Well, we're going to go fishing for some bass and decided to catch some small minnows first of all. This is a minnow trap, a little bit of bread in there, thrown into the pond, and 20 minutes later we come back and it's full of little live minnows which we can use for bait to catch the bigger bass.
You're good, yes? A nice little bass, just big enough for
Some lynx, the wild cat of the North Americas. Not something you want to come across face to face. Where you may have to lift paint out or use dry brushwork, but in oils, acrylics or pastels it's quite easy to put on the horizontals afterwards. I think you might enjoy the play of different blues and greens here, as I was saying, the warm blues against the cool. find it hard enough understanding French in France, but understanding Quebec French is even harder with the accent and how it just blends one word into another. Even though the trout were very small, I still enjoyed the fishing very much, and the tradition of fly fishing like this with a dry or wet fly, and I was able to use both that day, was very... That evening, as the tide went out, Jeanette took me to another bay that she knew, very pretty, and as the sun set and we drank a glass of wine or two, sitting on some deck chairs, I decided to have a sudden go at a large watercolour. The sky was very cloudy, very atmospheric, rain was passing by, but I just felt like having a nice big tussle with a huge piece of paper. You want to watch? So we start with the sky. Cameras, a tripod, basic sets of paints, keeping just a very simple travel kit.
It's a shame about those spots of rain because they totally spoil a watercolour.
Now back to this painting. As you see, as the paint dries, I'm able to add in stronger and stronger colours, and gradually, as the paint dries more, the edges of my brush marks become sharper, so that in fact, if the painting were completely dry, I'd be able to put on sharp lines with the fine brushes, and that's what I keep my fine brushes for at the very end. Earlier. Let's try a little watercolour study here. I start off with a little pencil sketch. It's not going to be that easy because the light's constantly changing, and also there's a lot of spray from the waterfall which will keep the watercolour very wet and it won't allow me to get things dry quickly to be able to paint the hard edges. We managed to pull a few small lake trout out which were great for dinner. Capture the movement of her hands and her body and the atmosphere.
In E minor.
Right, we have another pike on our way back on a small silver lure. Feels like quite a good fish, this one. Here we are, finished of the holiday. Had a wonderful time. We've just been out on my second to last day and caught a fish here about 20 pounds. So, I hope you enjoyed the film and all the painting in between. Gives you an idea of this break to Canada.